Okay, Parshas Eikev. It's the first midrash. I alluded to it the other day, where Vaya Eikev Tishmon. The reason why the Torah uses the word Eikev refers to the heel. That if one observes even the mitzvahs which are neglected by others, and the term Chazal use mitzvah shadum doshba keva, people who actually trample on these mitzvahs with their heels because they don't value them. And if you observe those mitzvos, you merit everything. There are no holdbacks. Hashem will give you the full gamut of bracha without any holdback whatsoever. So we explained that if a person picks and chooses mitzvos, which one is more advantageous, one's not less advantageous, that means he's evaluating mitzvah based on his own understanding, which has there's no basis to it. Because it says in Pirkei Avos, you should be as careful with an ordinary mitzvah as more severe mitzvah, because you don't know the extent of what the innate value of a mitzvah is. Therefore, you should be as careful with a mitzvah kala. Now, the whole concept mitzvah, what's a mitzvah kala? I mean, based on your own evaluation, what you consider kala, you should be no less careful as a chamura. So what is the understanding? So the simple understanding is because you don't know the innate value. Therefore, to evaluate it based on your understanding, which has no basis to it, you're actually shortchanging yourself. Therefore, you should value the mitzvah kala no less than mitzvah chamura, the seemingly lighter mitzvah than the more severe mitzvah, because you don't know the extent of the skar mitzvahs. You don't know. So why do you choose and pick? The answer is because it's based on your misunderstanding or lack of understanding. And we always put our own lens to make this evaluation. That's a simple understanding. Therefore, we had explained that, but if a person values the less valuable mitzvah as the more severe mitzvah, what's his evaluation? If it's the Dvar Hashem, if Hashem says you must keep every mitzvah, every one of the 248 mitzvahs, how do you pick and choose? Hashem wants every one of them to be addressed and fully observed. So evidently you're not doing it because he commanded you, but rather there's an ulterior motive, there's a self-interest. That self-interest minimizes and interferes that you're not fully deserving of what? Of the full, to be accredited for the full mitzvah. So what does this mean? We know that a mitzvah that's done shlo lishma does not have the value of mitzvah that's done lishma. Person does mitzvah lishma, it's a different level. You do it for the sake of Hashem. You do it with reverence. You do it with love. Person does a mitzvah shlo lishma, as the Gemara tells us, Al Sheker Rav. You do it because you want that to be recognized, a certain status. You should be called the Rav, the rabbi, the master, whatever it may be, or for financial gain. Really, it should not have any value. It only has value because even when you do something with an ulterior motive, it has value because ultimately it could bring you to that more advanced level, which is lishma. So if a person picks and chooses mitzvah kal, mitzvah chamura, and as though that he neglects the mitzvah, so the mitzvah chamura that he does do, why did he choose that? Because of his self-interest. Automatically, it's tagged with that self-interest. Once it's tagged with self-interest, what does that mean? It means there's an aspect of the mitzvah which is shlo lishma. The moment it's identified as shlo lishma, that minimizes the value of the mitzvah. So once it's minimized, one doesn't deserve that more advanced level of what? Because you have to meet certain criteria to be worthy of the ultimate bracha. What's the ultimate bracha? Where you do it fully for the sake of Hashem. And since over here it's clear that since you picked and chose which one yes, which one not, evidently there's that self-interest, the self-gain, and that minimizes, and that creates the blockage that one doesn't receive the full value of the mitzvah. Because the mitzvah is not only the mitzvah which is innate, it's what accompanies the mitzvah, is the person's intent. That's the understanding. The apostle, David was concerned, Avon Akeva Yusubeni. I'm concerned that day of judgment, the sin of my Eikev, of my heel, will actually encircle me, will condemn me. Because if there's ever a time that I picked and chose and I neglected a less severe mitzvah, what does that say? I've deluded myself. I convinced myself I'm doing it purely for the sake of Hashem. If I'm doing it always purely for the sake of Hashem, so why at this moment did I neglect that less valuable mitzvah? Evidently, it's because I have that self-interest. Once you have that self-interest, it covers that defect is in everything you do. Because otherwise, how do you use your own evaluation system? If God commanded you, they were all the same. That's the understanding. A Jew has to do mitzvahs because God says you have to do them. A mitzvah is called the mitzvah. It's rooted in the word tzivui. It's a commandment. And God gave us parameters and laws which pertain exactly how to fulfill, when to fulfill, when not to fulfill, what to prioritize, what not to prioritize. Like we discussed, if there's a conflict, a positive, negative commandment, God gave us all the rules. Now that you have all the rules, now we talk about what's your approach. Because there's a lot of gray area. Now you have two mitzvahs. Certain mitzvahs you choose, you sweep under the carpet. They're not that important to you. The question is why? How could they not be important? If Hashem says because there's a priority order, okay, it's one thing. So you're doing it because God said. But if there's no priority order, so why are you picking this and not that? The answer is, you have that self-interest. Once you have that self-interest, that's shlo lishma. There's an aspect of shlo lishma. But I was thinking this, that what I'm saying is definitely accurate and correct. The Gemara tells us that a person wants to do a mitzvah, v'nenas, you want to do a mitzvah, and somehow you're not able to bring it to completion. Or even to begin doing the mitzvah, because nenas, something beyond your control, you couldn't do the mitzvah. You want to give tzedakah, and you told the poor man to come, and for some reason, the poor man went way late, and you weren't able to give him the tzedakah. Nenas, or you were way late. So in truth, you want to do the mitzvah. So the Chazal tell us, you get schar mitzvah. So this is quite, what schar mitzvah do you get? Do you get schar for giving tzedakah? Actually, there was no beneficiary. There was no beneficiary. You never actually, so what does it mean? You wanted to do the will of Hashem. It wasn't actualized. Nevertheless, says you get schar mitzvah. What schar mitzvah do you get? So there you could say very simply, like Chazal tell us, a person lives 40 years, a person lives 80 years. So the person lives 80 years, what happens? Seemingly, the additional 40 years gave him opportunity to do more mitzvahs. So he has a greater share in the world to come. So the Midrash says, the man who lives 40 years says, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, I don't think that's fair. Because if you would have allowed me to live 80 years, as I fulfilled the mitzvahs in 40 years, I would have continued the additional 40 years. It's only because you didn't give me the additional 40 years to live to do your will. So why should I be shortchanged? I deserve as much as the person who lives 80 years. So Hashem says that person, you're right. You'll be fully accredited as if you did the maximum. The amount of years you lived has nothing to do with what level of credit you get. If you're fully accredited, if you're fully committed, you get the full value of mitzvahs as if you lived 80 years. Because again, as we discussed, the Rambam says in Hilchos Tshuva that every Jew could be as great as Moshe Rabbeinu. Can every Jew be as great as Moshe Rabbeinu? It's not possible. It means to say that Moshe Rabbeinu, what his claim to fame was, his potential was the equivalent of the entire Klal Yisrael. Moshe Rabbeinu met his potential. You cannot be more than you're meant to be. You're not meant to be. If the person is meant to live 40 years, you can't live more than 40 years. That means within 40 years, you're given every moment of those 40 years because that time is essential to be able to meet the objective of your existence. To bring about what we call the shlemus haneshama. To perfect your soul through the various challenges of 40 years. Once you've done that, you've accomplished everything. You're as great as Moshe Rabbeinu because as Moshe Rabbeinu addressed his potential and fulfilled his potential, you fulfilled your potential. That's the understanding. So the man who lives 40 years, even if he live, or Hashem, like the Gemara tells us in Tainus, that sometimes Hashem takes a tzaddik before his time to atone for the generation. or because he doesn't want him to witness certain things because he doesn't want him to be pained, or he doesn't want him to be here because he wanted tzaddik will intervene, and Hashem will not be able to bring about the decree because tzaddik goes like HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Well, these are all the reasons. So, but nevertheless, the tzaddik is a credit for the years that he would have lived, because if he would have lived those years, he would have fulfilled those mitzvahs during the years as he did it during the years that he did live. This is all chazal, what I'm telling you. That's the understanding. So that's doing a mitzvah. What about not doing an avodah? A person is confronted to violate the Torah, and he doesn't violate it. He gets schar as if he did the mitzvah. Person is tempted to eat not kosher because in the past he didn't keep dietary laws. Now he has an overwhelming temptation to cross the line, and he restrains himself. So it says, regarding a negative man, he gets schar kilu ki mitzvah, as if he fulfilled the mitzvah. What mitzvah did he do? He didn't eat not kosher. What is the mitzvah? So the Rabbeinu Yonah writes in the Shari Tshuva, the credit he gets is for Yerushalayim. Why did he not cross the line? He had this overwhelming temptation. He had this challenge. And despite that, he did the right thing. He refrained from eating the non-kosher. What held him away? Yerushalayim. So there that emphasizes and magnifies his Yerushalayim. Another person would have crossed the line. He would have been drawn into due to the temptation. He did not. It's Yerushalayim. So I was thinking, if a person naturally always has one interest, nobody has a greater interest than himself. So every time you compromise your self-interest and you do for Hashem, that's considered a tremendous accomplishment. Yerushalayim says, despite what I want, it's what you want. Avraham Avinu, as much as he wanted that son, and he lived for that son. When Hashem says, bring that son as a sacrifice, as a olah, as a burnt offering, vayashkim Avram baboker. His own self-interest did not in any way interfere, hold him back from doing the will of Hashem, and he did it with what? With zrizus, with alacrity. Unbelievable. So what does that say? That means Hashem is his priority. He's not the priority. But what is that a demonstration of? Two things, either avos Hashem and yiras Hashem. That's what it is. So a person who has this overwhelming temptation to do the wrong thing, and he doesn't, and he refrains, despite his temptation, what does that say? It says Yerushalayim. So the credit he receives, what do you mean? He gets credit for not doing the Aveira. What credit is that? That credit is called Yerushalayim. That's what he's credited to. So that a person doesn't choose the mitzvah kala, the mitzvah chamorah with mitzvah kala. Why? But the tendency of human being is we do what's in our best interest. This mitzvah is a mega mitzvah. That mitzvah seemingly is not a big deal. According to my understanding, it doesn't have that great value. Despite that, he does it. So what does that say? Why is he serving Hashem? Besides the lishma shlo lishma, I said there's the shlo lishma aspect to it. It's a demonstration of Yerushalayim. Yerushalayim is a person, he doesn't reckon with himself. It's not what I'm interested in. It's what you want. And as a result of that, so that's the reason why Habizor mitzvah kal bechamura. What does it mean? You don't know the innate value of the mitzvah. It's not only you don't know the mitzvah, because Hashem never revealed to us what the mitzvah was, because as a result of that, you should be zohar, because when you are zohar, what are you adding to the mitzvah? It's another dimension of Yerushalayim. Mitzvah chamura, we understand. That's the reason why you do it. It's chamura, mitzvah kala. So if you do the mitzvah kala no less than mitzvah chamura, what does that indicate? What does that confirm? That confirms Yerushalayim. That's the ultimate, to be Yerushalayim. There's a famous Rabbeinu Yonah, he brings the Yerushalmi. There's a pasuk in Shir Hashirim, Tovim dodecha miyoyim. Shlomo Melech says in Shir Hashirim, Tovim dodecha miyoyim. Your dodecha are more beloved than wine. So the Chazal tell us, Tovim, Hashem says, Tovim dibri sofrim, Yosem yenu shel Torah. Rabbinic fences that a person observes, a rabbinic fence, Hashem values that more than he values yenu shel Torah, than you keep a doraisa. If you keep a rabbinic fence, what's it all about? The Rabbeinu Yonah, the famous Rabbeinu Yonah, in two locations, in Pirkei Avos and in Shari Tshuva, he says that Divrei Torah, Doraisa, are considered paparos versus rabbinic laws. It's like considered an appetizer. The entree are rabbinic laws. The Torah laws are considered like an appetizer. So he explains, what does it mean? He says, when a person observes the Torah, why does he observe the Torah? Puts on tefillin, observes Shabbos. It's the word of Hashem. He wouldn't dare cross that line. So that's easy to understand why he observes it. What about a rabbinic fence? Why did they legislate fences? Because it's a chance that if you get too close, or it's a situation where it's not clear exactly where you stand, you may cross that line. So in which context does it demonstrate a greater level of yiras shamayim? The Doraisa or Drabanan? Drabanan say, you know something? I'm not worried. I think I see it well enough. I'm not going to cross the line. Chazal say, you know something? You got to observe it really well, because you never know. A person says you never know. That means he values Hashem to such a degree, he's not willing to take a chance. When it's a Doraisa, not putting on tefillin, it's not taking a chance. Hashem says you have to put on tefillin. But every siyog is an expression of yiras shamayim at a very extensive level. So since the observance of Torah, the main core of Torah is yiras shamayim, therefore, since the Drabonon is a greater demonstration of yiras shamayim, therefore tovim dechem yayim, therefore rabbinic laws are valued more beloved to Hashem than what? Than the Torah law itself. This is how Rabbeinu Yonah explains this. So now, observe the mitzvah kala no less than mitzvah kamura. Ain't I tell you this, because you don't know the innate value of a mitzvah. What does that mean? If the tendency of a person is you take his own yardstick, is it worth my while, not worth my while? So therefore he picks and chooses. And despite that, this person doesn't pick and choose. So what is that a demonstration of? Yiras shamayim. So if the core of Torah is yiras shamayim, and the mitzvah kala is a greater demonstration of yiras shamayim, this goes in, this is the equivalent of tovim dechem yoyim. The rabbinic law has greater value because it's a greater expression, demonstration of yiras shamayim than the Doraisa. That's the way I understand it. Rambam speaks about, one of the tenets of Jewish belief is you have to believe in Nevuah. Hashem communicates with people. Then you have to believe Moshe Rabbeinu was the greatest prophet. All that followed him, all that preceded him. Then you have to believe that the Torah was given to us by Moshe Rabbeinu. Then you have to believe that the Torah itself is immutable. These are the order. Sequentially, this is the way it's presented. Then you have to believe that Hashem is aware of our actions and our thoughts. And then the Rambam says, you have to believe in schar v'onish. That follows Hashem is aware of our thoughts and actions. So I just explained why is that the order sequentially. First, you have to believe that Hashem is aware of our thoughts and actions. Then Hashem is gomel schar the ones who do His will and punishes those who don't do His will. The answer is very simple. If Hashem is not aware, even is aware of our actions, but how are you fully accredited? If yiras shamayim and avodas Hashem and shmo l'shmo interplay to the core of the mitzvah, if He doesn't know our thoughts, how does it give us? How are we fully accredited for doing the mitzvah? Therefore, that we speak of schar v'onish, it has to be predicated. Hashem knows not only your actions, He knows every nuance of thought. At what level did you do the mitzvah? What was the level of ava? What was the level of yira? Was it yiras aromos? Was it yiras achet? Yiras onish? What exactly was it? Since Hashem knows that, without as much as a detail not understood, now we talk schar v'onish, because that's core. And what we're saying now, according to Rabbeinu Yonah, based on the Medrash, that yiras shamayim is the core of Torah, and it's a greater demonstration yiras shamayim when you observe a rabbinic law than a Torah law. There's no question. So definitely Hashem has to know what the thought is, what our thoughts are. What do we invest? What we do? How do we meet the challenge? Why do we meet the challenge? tempted by Asia's Potiphar, his mistress, his master's wife, and he nearly succumbed to temptation. So Rashi cites Chazal that he saw Dmus Yukno Shalov. He saw the image of his father, and because he saw his father, he did not cross the line. But otherwise, Chas V'Shalom would have crossed the line. The Gemara says in Sota, Yaakov said to his son, whether he thought in his mind, he says, if you, God forbid, cross that line and have relations with this woman, first she's a married woman plus many other problems, your name is meant to be on the Choshen, on the breastplate of the Kohen Gadol. It's not going to be there. That's number one. So therefore, you're going to forfeit your place in the ultimate place, which is the Choshen, which indicates who you are. Secondly, he says, you know what? If you cross that line, you're going to be roes zonos. You're going to shepherd prostitutes. You're going to be considered like what we call a pimp. Chas v'sholom. Do you want to be classified as that? And because when he was confronted with this reality of crossing that line, what it would bring about, it would bring about a level of spiritual destruction beyond catastrophe, it stopped him in his tracks. Immediately, the desire was evaporated, immediately. So why did he not? Why did he not cross the line? Because his father said, you're going to forfeit your place. So at that moment, it wasn't purely, I'm doing l'shem shamayim, for the sake of God. I mean, Yaakov had to understand what I'm going to lose. And there's no problem. Everybody has to understand that, you have to have the carrot and the stick. Everybody has to have a carrot and a stick. What's the carrot? Or the mabo, whatever it is. But simultaneously, you always have to understand that Hashem could punish you. Because we're all human, and the Yetzer Hara knows exactly how to present things, and how to whisper in our ears, and how to draw us gradually and pull us into something which we shouldn't be pulled into. So we need. Do you realize what you could be forfeiting? Do you know what that means? You could forfeit that chas v'sholom. Understanding that can be forfeited automatically, and you understand because you really believe the value of your life is only to do the right thing, that's going to stop you in your tracks. So the more you understand the negative, that's going to catapult you to the positive, to do the right thing. Because he wants to share in the world to come, which is the whole purpose of existence. That we should do the right thing because Hashem wants us to have a relationship with him. That we should be beneficiaries of the ultimate goodness on an absolute level, which is a relationship with him. That's not the ultimate level of Shema. The ultimate level of Shema is, when we talk about reverence, it has nothing to do with what I receive. It's doing your will, because I recognize who you are, and that is your word, and that is your will, unrelated that I'm going to be a beneficiary of anything. I'm doing it for that reason. That is the ultimate level of the Shema. But I'm doing for sharing the world to come, but then that's already the self-interest. The moment we talk about self-interest, even though it's a very positive self-interest, you're already walking on dangerous territory. Because the moment you think about yourself, here it's in the spiritual context, it could be in what? It could be in a physical context, not spiritual. But when you do it selflessly, only for him, has nothing to do with me, it's only him, so then you're staying clear of that Achilles heel that may pull you into a shlol l'shma. Therefore, that's the ultimate level of the Shema. That's what the Mitzvos Hashem writes. There's about a 6-7 volume book and stories about the Chofetz Chaim. His students were interviewed who learned in Radin, and whether they lived in Israel, lived in the United States, lived in Europe, they were interviewed. And many facets of his life are recorded there, whether it was the Torah he taught, whether it was the shmuz he said, whether the way he conducted himself, personal conversations. It's all contained in this six volume work. And over there it describes how the Chofetz Chaim ate breakfast. He ate breakfast every morning. But does it make a difference? It doesn't make a difference, because you understand the way the Chofetz Chaim ate breakfast. He'd say, "Oh, such a holy man, Reb Chanina ben Dosa, Dailo v'kav charuvin. Maybe he ate a pittance every morning. He would have a small roll. This is what it is. Seems to be like almost like childish, with butter, an egg, and a cup of coffee. That was his breakfast every morning. You understand, when the Chavetz Chaim ate that roll with the butter and the egg, whatever he ate, he chose that specifically. He had a specific intent. The Rambam says in Hilchos Deos that a person can live every moment of his life as a mitzvah. You sleep, you eat, you vacation, you relax. If you do it for the sake of God, there's no aspect of your life which is not a mitzvah. And he quotes a pasuk, Kopol Hashem l'manei. Whatever you do is for the sake of God. That's why you do it. If you do that, even the most mundane act, you take a walk to get some fresh air, to clear your head, to be more relaxed, to be more functional as a servant of Hashem, that walk, that break that you took, that's a mitzvah. Everything's the intent. But if you go take the walk, I enjoy it, I just want to feel better, and it's not coupled with you have in mind, it's for that reason, even though you're doing the right thing. But if you think specifically, so I should be healthier to be able to do the will of Hashem, that extra little bit of intention brings it to another level. Those are the words of the Rambam. To understand the second level of responsibility in life, we spoke about one's own self, one's health, what one needs for himself. Then we spoke about your wife, your children, your family, and all the which has relevance to you, your community. Unyoni kinyoni odom, v'sibos tarfo, v'ofnei asok b'miskor. We speak about the acquisitions of a person, the basis for one's livelihood, in what area of commerce do you get involved, umalocho, or its physical work, balich zadrochim, or business travel, umini uschirus upkidus. You have appointmentships, you hire yourself out, avodas hamalochim, vigizboros, working for kings, or you have responsibility, kablonis, amonov, sifrus, whatever area of life you choose, to be a scribe, to be a government official, to be independently, financially, self-sufficient, self-earner. Mini avodas halichos hamidboros hayamim. Different types of responsibility you have. You have to travel the deserts, you have to travel the oceans, you have to do many things. There's a beautiful word from the Rechaim HaKodesh. And Rashi cites it in the Pasuk in Parshas Eikev. We know the Yaakov, he identified each potential of each one of his sons and each one of the tribes. And he created a partnership between Yisachar and Zvulun. Yisachar was the tribe that was designated for Torah, and not to be distracted as much as an iota for any physical need which he needs. And the provider would be Zvulun. And Kemach Torah, we're physical beings, we have to address our physical needs. So who provide the physical? Zvulun. And it was Yaakov's understanding of Zvulun that he was the most qualified and appropriate for this, because the Chazal tell us that Zvulun was so dedicated, he valued Yisachar's Torah to such a degree, Havisam ochel b'piv shel Yisachar. He literally would put the food directly into Yisachar's mouth. He would not allow Yisachar to be distracted as much as an iota from what? From the study of Torah. The food would be waiting there, would be prepared there. Whatever was needed, it was waiting that Yisachar should not be distracted from his Torah. That was to what degree Zvulun revered and esteemed Torah. But the only one who could make this evaluation was Yaakov. So Moshe Rabbeinu says gives a bracha to the Shvatim before he passes away. He says, Smach Zvulun b'tzeisecha v'yisach bo'lecha. Zvulun, you should rejoice when you go out to do commerce. Why? Because the reason why you're going is because Yisach bo'lecha, because Yisach is in the tent of Torah, studying Torah. So the objective for you to go out is to support Yisach's Torah, because without your support, he's not able to learn. Therefore, Zvulun, rejoice even before you, when you go out to earn the various monies that you need to support him, you should already rejoice when you go out. Because Yisach. And the Torah goes and he gives the bracha first to Zvulun before Yisachar. And Chazal make a point to this. Why? Because if not for Zvulun's support, Yisachar couldn't study. So therefore, Zvulun is accredited at a special level for this reason. So the Rav Kalatsky asks a question. Person hears he has a business opportunity because a special client, a special interest, this and that, and you're excited. And then you go there, and what do you find? For whatever reason, there's a disappointment. It wasn't quite the way you thought. And it didn't happen. So Rav Chaim asks a question. How could we tell Yisachar, you should already rejoice when you're going out? Maybe it's going to be the business trip is going to be a failure. What are you rejoicing about? In advance, do you know how it's going to come out? How it's going to, whether it's going to come to fruition or not? Who said it'll be a success? So the Rav Chaim HaKadosh says, it's a known fact, unequivocally proven, that when you go for the sake of Torah, you definitely will succeed, without a question. Therefore, Moshe Rabbeinu is saying to Zvulun, Smach Zvulun, since you're going l'shem shamayim for the sake of God, so Yisach should be able to study Torah, guaranteed Hashem will deliver. And because you have the guarantee, therefore you can already rejoice even before you go out, knowing that you're going to bring back the catch. That's the Rav Chaim HaKadosh. And it's very similar to this. If a person takes initiatives, we have to take initiatives. Even if you're meant to live, the Chobot says 100 years, but you have to live responsibly within the 100-year period. You have to eat, you have to take care of your health. You can't put your life in jeopardy. Because if you don't do what you're meant to do, it's not going to happen. And even when it happens, who do you attribute the success to? Is the initiative just a means, but the end is only because Hashem says, address the means, I guarantee the result. But you have to attribute it to Hashem. And that's what he speaks about. Whatever area you choose, whatever you feel you're adept to or you're capable, you choose that, but why ultimately do you succeed or not succeed? Because Hashem wants you to succeed. And the more you understand it's him and not you, ultimately it's going to come to that. So that's similar to Smachum b'tzeisach v'yisochu b'alecho. If your intent is you're rejoicing because you want to, you value and revere and esteem the Torah to such a purpose, to such a degree, guaranteed, when you come back, you're coming back with the success, with the good news. The Rav Chaim Kosh writes over there, it says in Pirkei Avos, "Ben kemach ein Torah." If there's no kemach, there's no Torah. So if you have Torah, so where's the kemach? He says very often, if there's no ein kemach, that's an indication it's not Torah. There's something lacking, deficient in that Torah, and that's why Hashem's not providing the kemach. So sometimes, as a result of that, you have to really introspect and see exactly what the problem is. Why isn't Hashem providing? If this is so-called, supposedly what he wants, so why isn't he underwriting it? Evidently, there's something there that he doesn't want. You can't say he doesn't want people who should study Torah. That's not possible. Evidently, there's some other deficiency there. Just to share with you a story of Aaron Kotler. Aaron Kotler, when he started Lakewood Yeshiva, so every yeshiva, they print stationery. And usually on the stationery, they have some kind of picture, a picture of the building, of the first base measure in Lakewood, first base measure they built, where originally started, they had maybe not that many students, 50 students. So they had the building there, and in the picture on the stationery, they had bushes and shrubbery growing around the building. But factually, there was no shrubbery. The printer who printed the stationery wanted to be more attractive, so he added, besides the building, he added bushes around the building, a shrubbery. Rabbi Aaron says, we need new stationery. When it comes to Torah, it has to be at the level of emes, emes cannot be in any way diminished. Putting there something that which is presenting us in a lens which is not 100% truthful, you understand, on that we're not going to have Torah. That's not going to generate emes of Torah. There's a deficiency in the emes. Therefore, he made them reprinted stationary, without the bushes around the building. You understand what we're talking about? When we speak about looking exactly why things are not going well, it's not because people are embezzling, people are not studying, you'll be studying. But if the manner in which you support that, it's not 100%, it's something not in sync with what the Torah is all about, that's en kemach, is because there's a lack of that Torah. That's why Hashem is not providing, because the means in which it's coming about is not 100% appropriate.